Welcome to the final day of Kiel Week 2019. It's actually the 125th edition, and what an anniversary it's been, Ben. I'm Andy Rice, by the way. That's Ben Ramoka. He knows everything about Nacras and 49ers and 49er FXs that there is to know, which is just as well because we have got some humdingers of some medal races coming up, Ben.
Yeah, it's going to be a thrilling finale to this regatta. It's been a great week in general, but with all three races really close on the points and some great potential champions in each fleet, it'll be interesting to see how this day plays out.
Absolutely. So first up, we've got the Nacra 17s, followed by the 49er FXs, followed by the 49ers, which we'll come to why that might be the most exciting later. We want you to stay tuned for that 49er one. But the Nacra 17s itself is a pretty exciting scenario that we've got. There's not enough medals to go around, are there?
That's right. There's 4 teams, only 6 points apart, which is only 3 places on the race course. So there's been about 6 or 7 teams who have been in contention for the race wins all week, but a few of those had slip-ups, and now it's down to 4 of them, and there's only 3 medals to go around, and they're all shooting for the gold.
Yeah. Now, we had some great coverage of the Nacra 17s a couple of days ago when it was really windy, and if you want to check out more about what Ben's written about that, he did some fantastic analysis on nacra17.org, which is also where you can go to look at a lot more information about the boat, about the sailors that are sailing these boats. Ben, in terms of today's conditions, what are we expecting?
We have another unique set of conditions today. We have a southerly wind that is from 12 knots, and it's meant to build and go right through the day with puffs already 18. So it's a system wind and a bit unstable. It should shake things up on the water.
Okay, so a bit more wind than we've seen the last couple of days. We've got a highlights package to show you from the last day. So let's take a look at what led us to today's medal races. The closing weekend of Kieler Woche started with a spectacular highlight. The Windjammer Parade set sail on the fjord in bright sunshine and fantastic weather. At the same time, the 49ers started their Gold Fleet race in very light and shifty wind. At the first windward mark, it was the Poles, Cibatek and Kolozinski, who held the lead. The top Kiwis in this world-class lineup are Dunning-Beck and Gunn, along with Olympic champions Burling and Chuk, but both teams struggled in the light airs. The New Zealanders found it difficult to make their way through the congested traffic. On the second windward leg, the Poles lost their lead to the French team, Fischer-Jovan, who read the shifting breeze better than anyone. They took the lead and held on for the winner's gun. The Germans, Fischer and Graf, had a hard race, but still finished 9th. It was a good race for the world-ranked #1 team from Great Britain. Peters and Sterrett sailed a smart race to cross the finish line in 4th place.
Yeah, it's another day of shifty offshore, which we're getting quite used to here in Kiel. And I think we came 4th or 5th in that race there, so 4th. Yeah, just keeping kind of consistent. We had a good 2 races yesterday and continuing on with that today.
With the wind conditions getting even lighter, this would be the only 49er race of the day. The top 10 on the scoreboard will be racing for a place on the podium in tomorrow's medal race. So quite light winds for the last 2 days. It's been a bit of a struggle to try and get racing in. We only had for the 49ers that 1 race yesterday, only 1 race for the Nacras yesterday as well. It has shaken up the leaderboard because earlier on in the week, wearing the yellow jerseys were local sailors Paul Koloff and Alisa Stulemer. They are still in contention, I believe, but they're in 3rd at the moment. But they slipped up in the light winds. We were just speaking to Paul Koloff's brother Max, competing in the Finn. He says that's sort of the Achilles heel of his brother's Nacra 17 sailing. Yeah,
they were in the lead of this regatta and then slipped off with 2 14th places in a row, one of which they had to keep. So with only 6 points to the lead, that was a very costly set of races that they finished the qualifying series with. But to be honest, a test of light and heavy air conditions here this week is really what sailing's all about. And maybe Lady Luck's on the locals because this is mid-range conditions, if not super windy, and they should be comfortable in it.
Yeah, that's very true. Not that the leaders, Thomas Zerjak and Barbara Matz from Austria, are uncomfortable in that, but just give us a rundown of those top 4.
As we zoom in on the fjord here of Kiel that we'll be racing in, we can see the wind is set up to coming in offshore right now, and it will swing to the right later through the day, but this is the angle we're in to start. The leaderboard is Zajac and Mats from Austria with a 3-point lead over Senholt and Lübeck from Denmark, followed by a tie between the two teams of Koloff and Stuhlheimer from Germany and Pizarro Frascari from Italy. Only one other team can factor into the medal conversation, and that is Kurtbay and Keskinen from Finland, who can slip into third if they have a good race and the other two don't.
So just over 3 minutes to the start, and we can see that the breeze is reasonable. It's maybe not as strong as what's on the forecast, but it is set to build during the day. But the past couple of days have been marginal foiling conditions for the Nacra's downwind. So Thomas Zajac, our series leader at the moment, was telling me yesterday that sometimes the foiling downwind was really paying, sometimes it was really hurting you because you were trying to go for that extra speed, sailing extra distance to try and get on the foils, and then it wasn't working. So that was quite tricky to know whether to hop up on the foils or not. Today should be more obviously a foiling day, I suspect.
Yeah, in about 6 knots, the boat's comfortably foiled downwind all the time, and I think they'll be foiling downwind today. So that dilemma that Paul was discussing about whether to go up on the foils for the downwind or not might not be so tough, but it is a bit lighter than forecast right now, and the teams might not be expecting that, and does play into the strategy quite a bit.
Just give us a rundown of the points and the top 4 that are racing for the gold.
Yeah, so we're on board here with, that's the Italians. They're in third place on 36 points, tied with Paul Koloff and Alicia Stuhlheimer, who are also tied on 36 points. And then we've got Lynn Sentholt and CP Lübeck from Denmark on 33 points, with the leaders Thomas Zajac and Barbara Mats on 30 points from Austria.
Okay, 1 minute 50 to go. So we are, for the gold, we're looking at Austria 3, Denmark 71, Germany 77, Italy 5. And it could have been so much easier for Pizarro and Frascari, partly because of that woman overboard, which you've written about and is worth looking at the analysis that you did, but also they got STP against their scores. What do you know about that, Ben?
Yeah, they got standard penalty points of 2 points per transgression times 4 transgressions. They didn't sign in or out on day 1 or day 2 for a total of 8 points added to their score, which in some races or regattas, I guess, might not be super significant, but it was actually 25% of their total points for the week. So you know, some might say a rookie error, others might say a misplaced penalty in terms of why in sailing we apply penalty points to administrative transgressions. But nevertheless, they have the extra 8 points on their scoreboard, and otherwise would be in the lead heading into this race.
Oh, so that's got to hurt. But anyway, you have to put that behind you. You have to focus on the fact that there's just 40 seconds to go. We've got one of the Danish boats down in the bottom corner, just jibing round. That's Lynn Sentholt and CP Lübeck in second place overall at the moment. What are they going to be trying? Are they going to be thinking about that port tack start? We've seen it work for the Spanish, but the Spanish are clearly lining up second from pin, going for a standard start on starboard. We've got the Finnish boat, Sinem Kurtbay and Axeli Keskinen, maybe looking very good for the pin if they can just hold their position. 7 seconds to go. The Spanish looking a little bit close.
Oh, they are close.
4, 2, 1, and ooh, that was very close for the Spanish, but let's see how they go. A good launch off the line for Denmark 71, considering they were so late lining up. Very good by Lynn Sentholt, CP Lübeck. Start was clear. What's
the finish got stuck on the anchor line of the pin boat, so very costly for them. There just wasn't enough room for the 2 boats that were trying to start off the pin to get in there, and now not only are they hung up on the boat there, but they're also going to have to do a 360 for hitting it. So really tough start for the Finns, and it's very difficult to get the anchor line off of the elevators as well. So a little bit of hard work here, and we'll catch up with them. Well, no doubt they had a chance to move into the medals. I don't think we'll be seeing that anymore. But more importantly, Lynn Sentholt and CP Lübeck flying off the start, winning the 3rd place up from the pin, which of course is the only boat to escape. So great positioning for those two. Although I do wonder if it's going to be the far side of the course that comes in. That is the forecast.
Okay, so watch out for the right-hand side if that's where the forecast is going. Now, Lynn Sentinel and CP Lubeck have just dropped off a little bit. The other boats don't seem to have dropped off. We've got a replay now. Finland looking to nail that pin. And off they go, but oops.
Yeah.
And they get stuck.
I think they got stuck on the daggerboard first, and then they get off the daggerboard and then slip into the rudder. So twice stuck, and that's virtually their race over, although it is light enough that something might happen, but I doubt it. Tough break for the Finns. Back on course here, and we can see Pacheco and Trittel, who have started on port for most of the week, doing the same thing again here. And let's try and catch up with the four contenders.
They were forced over to the right. They got a poor second row start. They didn't want to go to the right. They were forced that way, and they were some way back off the line. So for them to be where they are now already is a very good recovery by the Spanish.
Oh, and the Danes in the foreground of this stream here looking very light. So we saw how quickly the boats were moving on the far side. The Danes' early leaders might have sailed into a bit of a hole, and it's not looking nearly as good for them now that they're stuck in this corner, but there's still lots to play for up the speed.
Just look at the speed differences. Senholt and Lubeck, they won that start of the pin end. They're back in 9th place now, only just getting up to 6.5 knots of speed. On board with our yellow jersey wearers, the leaders going into this medal race is Zazak and Mats from Austria. Mats working hard on the main sheet, occasionally using her knees, as you can see, to just get a bit of... in fact, no, that's more body movement for the boat, I think. I don't think that's main sheet. What's she just checking there? Just run into... change something. Breeze is looking good over this side of the course now, so I wonder if Senholt and Lubeck have managed to get into that. But Koloff and Stulemer, leaders of this series earlier on in the week, currently leading overall. But Denmark 71 still looking really, really slow on this side of the track. Senholt sitting in, only CP Lubeck out on the trapeze. So the Danes, after such an amazing start, it's done them no good whatsoever.
Koloff and Stuhlhammer here. They'll be thrilled with how things are playing out here. They're in the lead of this race with at least one.
So that, I think Ben, actually that's Polgar and Werner that we're looking at there. And I think they are on the wrong side of the course for where this breeze is. Koloff and Stuhlhammer, I think it is where it is on the far side of the course. So they look to be struggling at the moment, Polgar and Werner. They're just not in the breeze, and they're just being, well, you can see that in the graphic right there. They're very exposed, they're very isolated on that side of the course, and they don't seem to be able to find a way back over to the right-hand side. Ben, the Germans that you were talking about, Koloff and Stuhlhammer, seem to be in much better breeze. That's the leading German that we're seeing there, fully stretched and in massively different conditions. So as you correctly predicted, the right-hand side was the place to go. It's not even a question about which side to go. At the moment, this is extremely one-sided.
And look, even beyond them, the Italians are farther right of them. So they're showing up as 5th on our leaderboard right now. But if the wind continues to go right, they'll be in great position. So those are two of the teams that are aiming for gold here in great position. We also see that Zajac and Mats, at least on the tracker, are in position. So 3 of the 4 teams who are vying for gold are sailing well up this first beat. When we spoke to them before they launched, every single one of them said, we're going to see how this first beat goes and then apply specific tactics to the point situation after that. And so far, we've got 3 of the 4 of them in play.
So this could well be whoever is first across the line. It could be that to win in Kiel week, you have to win the medal race, which is the perfect scenario that we like to see, and I'm sure you at home like to see as well. Spanish just forced to tack away there in the bad air of Austria, who also just going into attack. But coming up to the top markets, Koloff and Stuhlhammer about to go round, about to tack round.
It's a good lead for such a short beat. I mean, it hasn't been so long since we were starting, and they've pulled out a healthy margin of lead so far. I wonder if they'll be jibe setting, thinking there's more wind around the beach side or the far side of this course. We'll have to see what they do.
It would sort of be surprising if they didn't.
Yeah, very wide rounding of that gate mark, so the spreader leg is big today.
That's very big for a 10-boat fleet.
Yes, it is, but I suppose doesn't really matter too much, and they'll get around this, and they do have a gap to jibe if they want to. Don't know what we'll see them do. Nice hoist there, quick hoist to the spinnaker, and getting straight up on those foils, so no jibe for them early as yet, but they're off and racing. We've got Austria here with Spain next to round, and I wonder if the Austrians will jibe, because otherwise they'll be following the Spanish. No jibe for them, and once again we see the hoist from the wire, just like in the examination we did the other day. So good hoist from the Austrians. They kept their speed up, even though they were being rolled, and got up in the foil very quickly. Japanese through, now the Swedish, and we're looking, oh, this isn't Senholt and Lubeck yet. This is Pedersen and Boriskov, followed by Senholt and Lubeck. So Senholt and Lubeck, second heading into the race today, have a lot of work to do in order to try and get back in contention.
Now, Zajac and Mats at the moment still hold the lead by 2 points over Koloff and Stulemmer, who are leading this race by a country mile. So replay, so absolute, perfect replica of what you were talking about the other day, Ben. Very different styles that we see, and in the case of Barbara Mats, hoisting from the wire. Look at the breeze that the leaders are in now.
Very different from what we saw at the start, isn't it? Must have been just a light patch of that start line, because right now that's a good 10-12 knots, and these two are flying downwind as we've seen all week.
And they've always looked so in control in these conditions. Koloff and Stulemmer look to be one of the fastest downwind in the stronger breeze, and it's beautifully flat water for the Nacra 17 today. But I suspect with the wind offshore, also quite shifty and gusty, so got to keep your wits about you. Behind them, the white Jenica of Bissaro Frascari in 4th place at the moment, also flying along. Oh, quite a big nosedive behind there for one of the Danish boats. Was that, I'm not sure which one that was. It was either Senholt Lubeck or Soema Pedersen Boriskov.
It's quite a long lens there on that shot, so don't be fooled at how big the distance is. The Germans do have a big lead, although we see now in real image how quickly the Austrians and the Spanish are catching up. The Austrians managed to pass the Spanish by jibing a little bit ahead of them and earlier, and then caught this puff sooner, and are now on ley line and flying in, catching up very quickly to the leading Germans, who might have sailed out of the breeze. We can see the speeds there, only 10 knots for the Germans and 18 knots for the Austrians as they close up at this leeward marks, and it's back very close again.
So Austria doing the jibe drop around that leeward gate. Very difficult maneuver, beautifully executed. Spanish going out to the far side. Round come Bissaro and Frascari from Italy.
And attack straight away from the Spanish. So I think we got a shift from the right, which we expected, and the teams are now turning that into a lift compared to the first beat. But I do wonder if someone dug in and went farther right, if the trend might continue.
So the Spanish go round and then decide to go off to the left-hand side, follow the leaders. Swedish round this bottom mark. 2 Danish boats going round. The nearest one is Senholt Lubeck. Went into this race in 2nd place, but they, at the moment, are out of the medals. They've got a lot of catching up to do.
Well, these are 3 of the 4 in contention for the overall win, and I'm a bit surprised no one is going far right here after we saw that wind shift right. I would have thought that the Italians and certainly Senholt and Lubeck should be on a flyer right now, going to the far side of the course.
But Kajimoto and Kawata from Japan are going out to the right-hand side. Will they be the fly in the ointment that creates the difference between who gets what medal? The Japanese themselves are not going to be getting one of those medals, but they could affect the outcome.
On board with Koloff and Stulemmer. Very good form on the upwinds from we've seen in these breezy conditions all week, and they look very comfortable, don't they? Working the sails to balance the power and just staying very low to the water without dragging their windward hull.
And doing very good speed upwind, just over 10 knots upwind, a little bit more than Zajac and Mats chasing them. So Zajac and Mats, if they can stay in 2nd place, if they can stay in touch with Koloff Stulemmer in the lead, that will be good enough for the Austrians to hold on to those yellow jerseys and get the gold medal around their necks later on this afternoon.
Yeah, so the tactics from Austria make perfect sense. They only need to follow around the Germans and still wrap up the victory. I'm a little bit surprised, and I see it now on the graphic, that the Italians were following as well, because they actually need to make a pass in order to win this regatta. And they have now broken off, but they spent an awful lot of the leg staying very close to these leading 2, making life easy for Koloff and Stulemmer.
But the breeze doesn't look very even across the course, so maybe you've got to bide your time. Maybe you've got to pick your moment to break away from the leaders. Maybe it was so obvious that this was the way to go. There's still room and there's still time, because we're not quite at the halfway stage of this race. This is a 3-lapper. Looks like Austria has dropped behind Spain. So that's going to be a potential opportunity.
Look how slow Koloff and Stuhlhammer are after this tack. I wonder if they've sailed out of the breeze. Actually, it looks like there's a problem right now. Koloff is at the back of the boat. I think we've got a woman overboard again. I think Paul has left behind his crew, Alyssa. Look, he looks back as she swims forward. My goodness. So what a development here. We've got our overall leaders who are in contention to win this race now overboard, and Paul should reach over and really try and help her up because it's quite high, actually. There we go. And what a development. We didn't get to see it, but we do have onboard cameras, so perhaps there'll be a replay later. But
wow.
Alyssa has, she looks fine. It looks like she just fell off, and she's back sailing again here. But what a disaster.
But I don't know, is there just not that much wind? They're not really going for it. Has the wind really dropped off that much?
Yeah, we see them accelerate now, and they're going for a duck shortly to go behind a couple boats. But it is a lot lighter than we saw just moments ago. Moments ago on this beat. And
fell over the front. Fell over the front beam.
Middle. Gosh, I wonder how that happened.
So maybe, well, we'll find out if there was a breakage of, because we haven't seen her back on the trapeze again yet. So
no, we did. She went straight back on the trapeze. So
okay,
must have just fallen off the hook.
Okay.
The foils are quite deep there, so it's not particularly a dangerous spot to fall through, and I don't think there would have been any damage, possibly the dolphin striker, but she does have a helmet on. But it's really shaken up this race, and they'll be bitterly disappointed after being in the lead.
Well, they are out of the medals at the moment because of that. It's not irredeemable. The Germans can get back into contention, but very unlikely they're going to be able to get back to gold now. They've got a chance of getting back realistically to bronze maybe if they can beat Senholt and Lübeck.
So it's been a big shift on the leaderboard of this race. Pacheco has now taken over the lead based on a right shift, and so have the Japanese, who were the first team to go right after the leeward mark rounding, have moved up into second. We're just looking at Koloff and Stuhlhammer here, who are limping back across the fleet in no wind. Massively different mode than everyone else. They're doing about 6 knots, and some of the boats are doing 12 knots on the far side of the course. So really tough situation for Koloff and Stuhlhammer. Spanish in the lead as they go into the windward marks here.
And chased by Kajimoto and Kawata. So the right-hand side really has paid, and there's a really, really tight race coming in behind with Denmark, Sayumu Pedersen and Boriskov coming in ahead of that pack with Bissaro, Frascari, Jarud Jonsson from Sweden, and Zajak and Mats. Quite a lean there for the Spanish boat as they go round. Florian Trittel running in and starting to hoist the Jenica straight into a jibe set. Tara Pacheco doesn't want to take any risks. This race course has been all about the right-hand side.
The Italians have done really well here to work through the pack and are now, I believe, in a race regatta winning position. A total turnaround from the first beat. And also we noticed that Zajek and Mats have fallen down. We didn't see them have a big fall like the Germans did, but they've moved all the way down from second place to sixth, now fifth on the leaderboard. So big switch on this second lap.
And you can see why the Spanish immediately jibe set. They're straight into the best breeze. The Japanese that went round in second have already given away a lot of distance just by doing a hoist and then a jibe after the hoist. But even that has given away at least 100 meters of distance. So the jibe set, just get onto port tack as early as you can, then get the kite up, seems to be the thing to do. So this is actually a very one-sided track, and what's surprising is that Koloff and Stuhlhammer, having done so well on the first leg by going right, didn't go right on the second beat. They must have had good reasons for going left, but it's dropped them out of contention.
Italians here working very hard to stay up on the foils. They're just in front of a chasing pack here, so every meter they can squeeze out of their boat speed, vitally important as they try and fend off the chasing pack and make sure they have enough points between them and whoever might follow behind them to try and take this win.
Quite difficult for them to achieve steady foiling today.
Yeah, it does seem a bit. The wind is meant to be less stable than it was in previous days, and it's an offshore condition, which is always unsteady. Back on with our leaders, the Austrians, who are just rolling. Oh, and wow, that's tricky sailing. So they rolled the boat there behind them and then fell off the foils, and the boat behind had to do a pretty drastic measure to avoid. I think that was Senholt and Lübeck. No,
it was Pedersen Sayumu.
Yeah,
so the other Danish boat not in contention for medals. Austria 3, Zajac Mats being chased by the Swedes.
Going into simultaneous jibes. They're unlucky, really, for Sweden to have gone into the jibe at the exact same time as the Austrians because they'll have a bad wind. In the lead, heading into the finish line, it's the Spanish Tara Pacheco and Florian Triddle seal that win. They did sail a fantastic race, just had a couple of UFDs. A great regatta and a couple of UFDs, so they won't factor into the medals, but they'll be satisfied with how they've sailed this week.
So race win, quite easy for the Spanish in the end. Kajimoto Kawata from Japan sailed across for second place. All these other boats are going to have an effect on the outcome of this race. Across the line come Bizarro and Frascari in third place, chased by the yellow jerseys Zajac and Mats from Austria, and then followed
Little showboat there from Zajac and Mats. That's the regatta victory from those two as they give themselves a high five, a well-earned victory, and they'll be thrilled with that result after a tough week of racing.
Fantastic by Zajac and Mats. It looked like Bizarro Frascari might have done enough down that final run to get into the lead. Big hug by the Austrians. They managed to overtake a boat down the run. That was a critical overtake for them, and they are clearly delighted. They've sailed a fantastic week.
We saw them on that downwind fending off a number of teams who were right on their tail, including those Danes, and they needed to keep those boats behind them in order to have enough points to still win, even though they were behind the Italians, and they did it. They're clearly elated in what was a very tight race through the finish.
Absolutely, and we were speaking to Zajac before the race today, and he was saying we haven't actually won a race today, and we're sort of surprised to find this week. We're surprised to find ourselves in the lead, but they've been so consistent. They're the only team that are counting all their scores. Oh, no, not quite. There were two teams that kept all their scores in the top 10. But look how happy they are, drinking from the yellow bottle, wearing the yellow jerseys, about to receive those gold medals later on today at the prize giving at the end of Kieler Woche.
We didn't see them cross the line, but Senholt and Lubeck came through in 7th place in the race for 14 points, immediately followed by Koloff and Stuhlheimer in 8th place for 16 points, which puts Senholt and Lubeck as third on the podium, the Italians in 2nd place on the podium, and unfortunately for local sailing fans here in Germany, Koloff and Stuhlheimer from 1st to 4th, and they do not get a medal here in Kiel Week. They'll be bitterly disappointed. One error is as much as it took, and they went from 1st to last, although it might have been a struggle with where they were anyways on the race course.
Yes, I mean, obviously that wasn't going to help them with a woman overboard. Maybe they would have managed to hold on to bronze medal but they'd still made a bad tactical call going up that left-hand side. The Japanese went out to the right. They made a big gain by doing that. The Spanish bailed out of the left-hand side soon enough to be able to get into the lead of that race and find that better breeze. And it just wonder, it's so easy to cast judgment from here, from the studio, but you were doubting it as they did it. Why were they going out to sea, going out to the left-hand side when the right-hand side had been so good? Well, let's have a look at these analytics, because that wind was all over the place. So very similar on manoeuvres. And top speeds, not so different. Zajac and Mats, our gold medal winners, were the fastest downwind, and it was a passing move on the final downwind that gave them a crucial place to be able to beat the Italians for the gold medal. Anything else jump out at you there?
Well, Bizarro and Frascari sailed an excellent race and did it by sailing a shorter distance. They sailed pretty consistently, or just slightly right of the fleet, but actually stayed in touch with the fleet. So very conservative sailing from them, and that paid off. They managed to tack away just before that light side, or the left side went really light. So I don't know if they saw that or if they sensed it, but that was a critical move for them, and really the difference between how they finished and Koloff finished, because that was the move that separated them and saw them change places from 4th to 2nd.
The other surprising thing to me was the pin end start, so beautifully executed by Denmark 71. They were in 2nd place going into that race. They got the start they wanted. It did them absolutely no good whatsoever.
Yeah, that pin end start, they gained a ton of meters, so they were looking great, but they didn't have the ability to tack and cross. So they didn't have their own destiny in their own hands. And I don't know if they wanted to tack and cross. I mean, that's a whole different conversation. But they ended up sailing into a lull and went from a good-looking position to almost last at the windward mark. But good credit to them. They stuck with it and managed to come away from a medal. So they didn't give up, and they kept on pushing up the leaderboard and finished in 7th, so ahead of 3 other boats, and that got them onto the medal podium. So sometimes you can recover from a race, and you certainly should never give up.
And the poor old Finns hooking up that pin end boat. We haven't seen that before. Well,
we do see that sometimes.
We do see
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Okay.
It's if. Yeah, I mean,
those foils don't do you any favors in situations like that.
The foils are very deep, right? So maybe typical judgments of how the angle of the line is off that pin boat can be tricky, and they, they just. There was 2 boats that were squeezed in very late in to try and get the pin end spot, Kirkby, and then on top of them it was, I think, the Spanish, and neither of them got a good start. They were both sailing so high they couldn't accelerate, and that's how Senholt and Lubeck were able to come over the top and take the pace that they both wanted to. But worse than what happened to the Spanish, the Finns got stuck, and it took them a while to get stuck. They ended up last in the race. There was no ability to recover that great a distance.
And the Spanish had a fairly awful start. They were second row. They were forced to tack out to the right. Turned out they were done a favour because that was clearly the right thing to do. So there is the confirmation of the standings after that very exciting medal race.
Sorry, there's an error in those standings. So our producer's taken that down. The real standings are Zajac and Mats on 38 points, Bizarro Foscari on 42 points, and then Senholt and Lubeck on 47, with Koloff and Stuhlhammer on 52. So that's the top 4. And actually, Pacheco and Triddle move up into 5th from 6th when they started the day on 62 points.
Okay. So those are the corrected scores, just as Ben read out. So there, drink it all in. Good finish by the Japanese. That gets them up to 8th place. Bizarro Frascari knock off 8 points for those weird not signing in and not signing out penalties, and they would have won the gold medal. So sort of woulda, coulda, shoulda. Got to read your sailing instructions.
Well, I'm not a fan of penalties for points on administrative errors, so I feel for them, and I know that they'll be licking their wounds. I mean, ultimately, this is a bit of a training regatta, and I guess you'll call it a learning mistake, a lesson to learn. But quite frankly, all these sailors have been through so many regattas, and it's not that reading the sailing instructions isn't the right thing to do. It's just that they're so long, and there's so many notices these days, and they're doing so many regattas. Reading dozens of pages of pretty monotonous text over and over and over again. It is, more difficult than it needs to be, and more difficult than it should be. As our friend Richard Pardlow used to say, they're the sailing distractions, not the sailing instructions. So they'll be feeling unfortunate for themselves. Sailed well enough to win the regatta, but ultimately take the 2nd place in Kiel, Woche, and they'll be happy with how they sailed. So too will the Spanish, who also finish off the medal podium, but they sailed without their UFDs, and across the water they sailed very well. They're a newer team, but really I'm thrilled for Zajac and Mats. I think it's been a while since they've taken a podium victory. Zajac sailed with Tanya Frank in the 2016 Olympics, and picked up Barbara as a new teammate just for this quad. So the 2 of them as a team have come a long way together, and this is the first time I think they've won a regatta as a team, or a major regatta anyways as a team, and that's a really good move for a duo that's super fun in the offshore, and really thoughtful people, and they've got an awesome web series that's being built from a network called Candidate Sailing. If anyone wants to find out more about the Austrian sailing team, and especially those 2 winners, you can find them on their YouTube channel, Candidate Sailing. But really fun stuff, and kind of there's a tour video that follows them around and follows them around their adventures and tribulations up and down.
So the calling the medals for Nacra 17 Tokyo 2020 for the Olympic Games is going to be very difficult. It was very difficult in Rio 2016, wasn't there? There weren't really any duds in that lineup, and it could have gone so many ways. It seems that that's what we're looking at. I guess it would be a surprise if Italy didn't get a medal.
I was just going to say, a year ago we would have said, well, Tita and Banti are heavy favourites because they'd won all the regattas in 2017 and 2018. But since 2019 started, I don't think they've won a single regatta, and as it they're now in a tight fight with these other Italians, Pizzara and Frascari, who have taken the last three or four regattas ahead of Regatta and Caterina Banti. There's no way we could predict the medal podium right now. There's probably a dozen teams who think they've got a chance. And we shouldn't be too surprised. This is a new configuration of the class. Foiling boat is pretty different than the previous iteration, and that makes it exciting.
But good quality always rises to the top. Good quality sailors always work out a new challenge, even when you go from semi-foiling to full hydrofoiling downwind as we have now.
But there's only 3 medals, and I think there's 6 gold medalists racing. So it's going to take more than just quality because everyone's got quality out there. Even the ones who aren't gold medalists are super high quality. 6 gold medalists sailing in one fleet is pretty fantastic stuff.
Yeah.
And then, to be honest, I don't think I'd favor any of them for any of the medals, really. So lot to learn here, and there's almost exactly a year to go. People are heading over to Tokyo on the next stop of this Olympic cycle, and that will mark the 1 year out from the Olympics. So the current standings and the current sort of ratings do matter now. Like they start to be reflective, but there's also, I think most teams would say they learn the most about the boat in the final year before the Olympics, when the concentration and the passion are just 100% focused. So there's a ton left to learn. If you check out the article I wrote yesterday on nacra17.org, we examined a few of the items of sailing that are still really different from each other. So there's a lot left to be gained in the Nacra 17, and in a year I think we'll be seeing a lot of new techniques, quite frankly.
So I think we've got just under 10 minutes to the start. Don't know the exact time on that, but just over 10 minutes, so not too long to the start of the 49er FX race. Talking about how things are going to improve so much in the final year, it just reminds me of the conversation we were having with the laser radial coach last night, Arthur Brett from Australia, who's coaching Manami Doi, the top laser radial sailor from Japan. And he says that he goes back through all the footage on YouTube that he can find, and analyzes it to the nth degree, and because that's where the secrets are revealed. When just in the laser radio, you're looking at real subtleties. The things that we're seeing in the Nacra 17, and you've highlighted in your article on nacra17.org, some of them are very obvious, and we saw another one there of Barbara Matz, the gold medal winning crew just now, hoisting from the trapeze, so not even going in to do the hoist. That, to me, looks like it makes a lot of sense.
The hoist we saw there looked brilliant. I mean, they gained many meters. They got up on their foils quicker. It looks, frankly, a little bit easier than some of the other techniques that were out there in terms of how to get that hoist up. And in the end, it wasn't very many meters. Like, that was a critical move that we jumped on board for when they were working over top of the Danish. And, they managed to get through. It was only a couple meters in it. Without a good hoist, maybe those meters aren't there. Maybe that passing lane wasn't there. So those are, we call them the details you're trying to figure out in Olympic sailing, but quite frankly, it's not a detail about like where you lead your sheets and how you do your hoist. Like, that's like the main thing. And I highlighted just 3 different techniques that we caught in one day of racing. I mean, that was no doubt. There's far more people out there working on things. You've got.
What's your daily coaching fee, Ben?
We've got what I highlighted in the article was that there's actually 3 different focuses. So the German team went round, and their focus was getting up that spinnaker as quickly as possible and then getting into their downwind mode. And then we saw, I think it was the Austrians, focus on keeping their body weight up. So they kept their body weight higher, focusing on leverage and, kind of scrambled the spinnaker up, and it was a flapping, and it's quite a powerful exercise for the crew on that because they've got to deal with the spinnaker with a lot of tension on it as they're hoisting, and it does flap a lot. And then we saw the Italians who really focused on the foiling. So the crew, the 2-sail foiled and got stable 2-sail foiling before the crew went in to hoist the spinnaker, and then they were trying to stay on the foils the whole time. So those are 3 pretty time, weight or leverage, and then foiling is 3 different focuses for what's most important in the hoist. And, quite frankly, they were all pretty good.
Which one would you choose?
Well, I always try for everything, right? So I think the Austrians are on the ticket there. From the wire, you can get your leverage, you can pull it up right away, and you can concentrate on foiling. So I think they're probably, I'd be inclined to think that was the one to work on the most, but maybe there's other items like drag and that high lane, with the leverage on. So maybe you need to have a few tools in your bag, but I think that had the makings of a winner, and I think the one we saw in the medal race looked really good.
It did, but I vote for the Italian one. I thought the fully foiling all the way through the hoist with the crew on the trampoline, doing the hoist from there, not as much leverage, but the boat always staying on the foils, and you gain a little bit more depth on the hoist, tactically puts you in a good position for the first jibe. I tend to favour that one. I just thought it was beautifully executed. But it's so exciting that the Nacra 17, still being a fairly new fleet, is still producing such a big learning curve. Let's switch our attention over to the 49er FX, which is not that long away from starting now. So just give us a run through of the scenario for the 49er FX. Who's in the lead and who's chasing them for the gold medal?
Yeah, it's an exciting race. We do still have, just like we saw in the Nacra 17 race, we have 4 teams in contention for the lead. The race will start in 9 minutes. For you sailing fans out there, you can go grab one more snack, unless you need to know what's in store for you, which I'll tell you right now. Germans, veterans of the Olympic circuit, they went to Rio in 2016, and I think we're 5th place in the end. Jersock and Lorenz from Germany, Germany 55, have a reasonable lead of 6 points. They're a pretty popular team on tour, hard campaigners, and they sailed really well in 2017, but I was very surprised when they said they'd never won Kieler before. So they're 420 sailors as a team together in the past, 470 sailors, and now 49er FX sailors. And as German nationals, they'll be thrilled to try and win their first Kieler. Chasing them in second place are Willemien Offerman and Elise de Ruyter from the Netherlands. They're the confirmed training partners of world champions Annemiek Beckering and Annette Deutsch from the Netherlands, and are young sailors, obviously very talented. They're on 34 points, so 6 points back of the lead. And then we've got the 2 Danes, 12 and 14 points off the lead, respectively. That's Ida Nielsen and Marie Olsen from Denmark, followed by their teammates Anne-Julie Schutt and Eben Nielsby in 4th. Any of those teams can still win the medal race. Obviously, Vicky and Annika, our leaders, have a bit more room to defend than the Austrians did in that previous race. But there's enough points on the board and enough sailors in the fleet that they can win still. And with the breeze up, I know both the Danish teams really like sailing in the breeze. I'm not quite as confident in the Netherlands' ability to handle the breeze well, but not that it's super windy yet. But we also saw Vicky Jersock and Annika Lorenz sail the best in the first 2 windy days here at Kiel. So hard to peg them both. I'd be a little bit surprised if Jersock and Lorenz couldn't manage a way to keep this lead. They'd have to stay ahead of the Dutch and then stay in the top 7 to stay ahead of the Danes. So pretty workable scenario for that. The top 6. But anything can happen. We saw that in the Nacra 17 race.
I'm surprised that, to me, it didn't look like many of those Nacra teams had done much homework before that race. I mean, it was the right-hand side. You said it was predicted to be that. I think you were talking more at a macro level of a longer-range forecast, but there looks like there's a local effect there as well of being closer to the shore, and the breeze just isn't coming across the course. Why didn't the Nacra 17 fleet know more about the power of the right before the start?
I don't know why they didn't know more about the right, but I can tell you how I learned it, which was anyone who's been to Kiel knows how good their weather briefings in the morning. I stopped in, at 10 minutes to 9 and sat in the tent, and the weatherman here was like so excited about how to explain us the weather. You can't help but enjoy listening. And he laid it out pretty clearly what was going to happen on the day. It is going to build and go. It's going to go ultimately 90 degrees right by about 6 o'clock tonight. So in any 20-minute race, you can't guarantee it's going to be a right shift, but it's easy betting. I mean, you got to go one way or the other, so you may as well go the macro way. And ultimately, that's what made the difference. There were some good puffs on the left at times, but ultimately the right was the way to go. I think both beats.
Find one of your rivals do a split tack before the start, cross back at the top, see who came out ahead. I don't understand why more Nacra teams weren't doing that. Now, there's even less excuse for the 49er FXs, assuming, of course, the conditions stay the same, because surely some of those teams will have been watching what's just happened in the Nacra 17, or maybe watching this live show, indeed.
Well, I'm excited because I think the wind was building, so that should make things pretty fresh out there. And if you remember, we started in pretty light conditions in the Nacra 17, and we saw the light conditions in a few patches on the water, which does make things very tricky. But as the wind builds, hopefully those lows increase as well. Here's the overall leaderboard, as we were talking about just a little bit earlier. Jursak and Lorenz in the lead, 6 points clear of Offerman and De Ruyter, followed by Nielsen and Olsen from Denmark. Schutt, Nielsby, a new team since 2016. Schutt, a previous campaigner, she's switched over from crewing for her sister to helming for Iben Nielsby. And then 2017 European champions, Lutz Boyka. Now, we didn't talk about them in terms of context of winning the regatta, but they still do have a shot at getting on the medals, and so do the following Swedes, Bobek and Tengström. So the Danes have a little bit of work to do to keep on the medal podium as well. So there's lots to play for all up and down the leaderboard.
3 Swedes in a row. Okay, so they're not in medal positions at the moment. The Swedes have come on really strong this week. Well, certainly I'm noticing the power of the Swedes more and more with every regatta that goes past. They do seem to be a rising force in FX racing.
I'll just draw everyone's attention to the blue Peter flag. That's the blue flag with the white square in the middle of it. So that means that teams can be ahead of the start line within a minute, and it doesn't matter. All that matters is that they're behind the start line at the go. So we've seen that's a different flag used for starting than we see in the main fleet racing scenarios. So that's possibly why we saw Denmark 49 so far advanced there. And then we saw them sail backwards to get back in line. The boat handling skills of this fleet are tremendous, just moving forward and backwards in a way that wasn't really seen 10 years ago, but they do it with such ease now.
Not quite as neat a row as we saw of 49ers yesterday with the 28 boats of the Gold Fleet. I mean, that really was extraordinary to see how early they booked their spots.
Yeah, it's not really necessary in a 10-boat fleet. There's going to be space for everyone. It is important that people be happy with the spots they have, but it's much easier in a 10-boat fleet to just back out and find a different spot if you're not happy with the spot you're in. In those big gold fleets of 25 or 30 boats, if you have to back out of your spot too early, there's a good chance you won't find another one, and that's a terrifying prospect. So the teams get in there early and then battle with their spots. There's actually a little bit of collusion with the boats next to you, so you all give yourself half a boat width of room and kind of stay static for a while and then try and fight it out in the last 30 seconds.
So we're looking at Victoria Yurtsok, the helm of the leading boat, wearing the yellow jersey. Now, at the moment, we can't see it from this angle, but on a broader shot, everyone is on starboard at the moment. I think there's some good money to be had starting on port behind the fleet and breaking out to the right-hand side. Will anyone be doing that? It doesn't look like that at the moment.
That's the Croatian 112 just backing up and going on port tack now. With a minute 20 to go, she might aim to find another spot on starboard. There is room at the boat, as we can see. If it had been a little later, I think I would have pegged her to start on port from that position. Right now, Sweden 22, I don't think they can make the pin from that spot, so they have the option to double tack up and try and get a better lane up to the pin, or I think we might see them bail out and start on port eventually. With a minute to go here, I don't think that's a position that they can get across the start line from. We do see the second place overall team, Netherlands 64, do a double tack right now and move up the line. So they're now in a very good position to win the pin, which would be a powerful space to start as long as they can tack when they want to. In the back of the lineup, that's Schutt and Nielsby.
Looks like they might be going for the pin.
Yeah, just on board here with Jursak and Lorenz, our overall leaders. They've got the boat above them, just going for a double tack. Let's see. They didn't go very far. I wonder what Jursak and Lorenz have also double tacked.
Looks like Bobek and Tengström are lining up for the port tack start on this side, closest to picture.
And they've left the Schutt and Nielsby pretty easy lane to start on the pin, so all they need to do is work on their timing, and they should be off. We've got, almost a head-on collision between the Swede and I'm not sure what Nielsen and Olsen are doing.
Surely
Denmark
they're gonna
7.
They're going to
I
attack.
wonder if they've been flagged for a sculling penalty and they're just trying to make room. What an awful start for Nielsen and Olsen. Good start there from Schutt and Nielsby as the crew gets in and gets all the control settings as they're happy for the upwind, and then get straight down on the wire to see how many meters they can get forward. This is very critical timing here as the teams try and get as many meters as they can to gain control as quickly as they can. They're only even with the boat just above them, so right now no dramatic effect, but that's Offerman and de Ruyter in Netherlands 64 just getting squeezed by Tina Lutz and Susan Boyka, Germany 29, and the boat out below them, Denmark 49. It's a clear start, confirmation, no OCSs. Here's a replay.
Really good launch off the line by Denmark 49. A bit of a heel to leeward, pull the boat upright, get the boat accelerating, and they're pretty neck and neck with Ned 64 at that stage, but then the typical power of the pin end start. They just keep on stretching away and that gain line moving in the Danes' favour.
A little bit surprised at how many controls the crew from Denmark there had to pull on after the start. I would have thought in this much wind they might have pulled some of that on ahead of the start, and been able to really concentrate on their tuning right after the start line there. But maybe in the lighter conditions you do want the controls off as you're maneuvering. Far side there we saw the port tack starter Bobek and Tenstrom right up on the gain line, so that's a start that's worked out for them. They're down in sixth position heading into this race, but they can move all the way up to third.
And all the three Swedes are going out to the right-hand side, but we are looking at Denmark 49. That's them right there. Schutt and Nielsby. Schutt just looking over her shoulder, just trying to assess.
Taking a long look at that windward mark there and what's happening over her shoulder. I think they're wanting to get back. Definitely they can't tack and cross here. And it would be a tough ask to tack and duck because I think they're a bit ahead of the Dutch, but ultimately if the other side's the place you want to be, I don't think that boat length should hold you up. On board now with Jersak and Lorenz. They are in fourth overall right now on the virtual, and very steady here. Look how tucked in they are behind each other, reducing their windage. This team have been this duo has been a team since they were teenagers, so they know each other really well. You hear Annika talking to Vicky probably about a little bit of settings or what she sees across the course.
So Tina Lutz and Susanne Boyka, Germany 29 on the left-hand side. We were just on board with Yurtzok and Lawrence 55, just going out of picture, but we're closing in now on Lutz Boyka.
And Jersak Lorenz will be thrilled with how this race is playing out. They're in contention with all the boats around them that they need to be in contention with, and they're traveling as a bunch, and they won't be scared of boat speed in terms of anyone. We do see Schutt, Nielsby, they go for the tack, and they manage to cross the Dutch, and that set off the chain reaction where the rest of the fleet tacks and also goes right along with Offerman and de Ruyter. So Offerman and de Ruyter, they're still in the bunch, so they still have a chance. Ultimately, they need to be 3 boats ahead of Jersak and Lorenz by the end of the race, so they haven't got that position yet, but they're still in contention, so they'll be reasonably happy with how things are going, but they do need to show a little bit more pace in order to make passes of these 3 more experienced teams.
And it looks like the left-hand side is a lot more powerful in this race. And Schutt Nielsby, after winning the pin, looked like they're going to be crossing all the boats that went out to the right. So there was me and my big mouth and the port tack start for Bobek Tengstrom, which I thought was going to work out pretty nicely for them. It seems like the breeze has really come back to favour the left-hand side on this start.
And Nielsen and Olsen in Denmark almost last in this race. Really shocking. They had that sort of start from nowhere where they were reaching below the line on starboard and then have gone to the side of the beat that hasn't paid. So nothing going right for them in this race. And I'd say their chances of holding on to their third place position are slowly dripping away.
Well, Schutt Nielsby into a medal position as they lead this race. Lutz Boyka just outside the medals at the moment. They've just got to keep on racing as hard as they can, but they need to get ahead of Schutt Nielsby if they are going to have a shot at a medal. Bronze medal is all they can realistically hope for at the moment.
Jersak and Lentz, we're on board with Lutz and Boyka here. Lutz and Boyka, now we see both of them in picture. So, this is the leaders, Jersak and Lorenz, just underneath Schutt and Nielsby. Schutt and Nielsby a little farther advanced, so the long lens making it look a little closer than it is. Schutt and Nielsby have had a great beat here. They took that pin end start and sailed fast. found the shift they wanted to go on, and actually had to duck Lutz Boyka on the way across the first time. Let's see if their additional pace, so they've taken the lead on that duck, and now Lutz Boyka have to tack it, go underneath, and we'll have to be content with second place into this mark with Jursak and Lorenz in third, and we should see the Dutch come in from the left-hand side here. I wonder if they will try and tack underneath the Germans, or if they'll be a little bit safer and go behind. Yeah, and that's confirmation. So they're going behind, and they're round in fourth, but right in contention of this race. So it's not over yet for Jursak and Lorenz, as they're going to have to hold off Offerman and de Ruyter to take this victory.
Well, Jursak Lawrence still holding a reasonable lead for winning that gold medal, but Schutt-Nielsby closing in on that silver medal. Offerman, who went round in fourth at Ned 64, the back of that pack, they don't have much breathing space. They still hold the silver. Actually, I suppose you could say they have a bit of breathing space in the sense that next boat round behind them is a long way back. So these top four on a real breakaway. That's a shame for Schutt-Nielsby, because they need another boat to overtake Ned 64 if Schutt-Nielsby are going to move up from bronze to silver medal position. We're looking at Germany 55, wearing the yellow jerseys, currently leading overall and on track for a gold medal.
That's right. Offerman and de Ruyter can't have any other teams pass them if they want to hold on to their position, assuming Schutt-Nielsby take the win here. So if they want to maintain their silver medal position, they've got to stay up in this front pack. They've got Western Ester from Sweden chasing them. There was a pretty big gap so far, but like we saw in the last race, it's pretty puffy out there, and there could be some passing lanes available.
Wire-to-wire jibe on board Germany 55.
Bit of a loose jibe there in the back of screen from Offerman and de Ruyter, but they get through it.
And you weren't expecting them necessarily to be too quick in these conditions, Ben, but they're not doing too badly. But I mean, they really went the correct side of the first beat. So maybe boat speed didn't really come into it right now. These four boats all went up the left-hand side of the course, and they've all done extremely well compared with the rest of the fleet that went right.
Yeah, I mean, they were certainly in touch. It's flat water and it's not super windy, so you don't need a ton of experience, of which they're shy of, because they're not shy of anything else in terms of skills or setup. We see Lutz Boyka on the outside, possibly going to force Schutt-Nielsby to the far gate and maybe create a split at this downwind mark, although Schutt-Nielsby looking pretty good here.
Makes you wonder if Lutz Boyka have overstood the ley line.
Yeah, they may have, but I think the ley line that Schutt-Nielsby are on is one that's going to take them to the far mark. So there should be room for Lutz Boyka to come in, and they're just underneath this pack. Let's see how close they can push it. Looks like the Danish there are just letting up a little bit and dipping low. Oh, they're going to not allow the split or force the others to go to the far mark and go the same way they went up the last beat. So I would call that aggressive sailing. They could have gone the straight leg and kept things simpler, but they knew everyone was going to go this way, and they wanted to lead it. So closing the door on the others to go the way that they all went up the first bait without them. I'm a little surprised that none of them went to the far side.
I thought there was a good opportunity there for Ned 64 because that would be a good covering move on the boats
for sure. They could, even if they wanted to go left, they could have gone 50 meters and then tacked. So a bit surprising there. And we see a big puff there hit Lutz Boyka, and it looks like actually into a header. I wonder how this angle is going to hold up.
Looks like Jursak Lawrence actually just stopped in the water. I think there's something wrong with the track. Oh, there we are. But they've got a slightly higher line than Lutz Boyka, so good climb out of that lower mark by our leaders, the yellow jersey wearers, Jursak and Lawrence. But Schutt-Nielsby stretching away. So important to get to that bottom gate in first place and be able to lead out like this.
I'm not sure what's in it for Offerman and de Ruyter to keep following this pack right now. The boat they need to protect is the fifth place boat, and they've gone right. And also, if they want to have ambitions to try and take the win, they're not going to get it by following Schutt-Nielsby. So, maybe they just think that this is the way to go, and they're so convinced that that's why they want to go left. But in terms of ambition, I think the opportunities to pass are on the far side if you're a gambling sailor.
Well, it's pretty hard to think about all those things while you're out there in the white heat of battle, but not necessarily an excuse. I'm just wondering if they're not thinking quite as clearly as you are when you've got so much else. You're very overloaded as a sailor in a 49er FX. You've got a lot on your mind just keeping the boat sailing.
Yeah, mostly my comments are just to try and understand what they might be thinking really before the race. Like, are they content just to stick in the pack and try and keep things close, or are they, trying to go for it and really ambitious in terms of how they want to sail this race? And so far, I think we're seeing either the left is for some reason super clearly favored that we don't necessarily see, or they just want to keep things close and see how it goes and play the small game.
Now, Schutt and Ilsby, they've sailed a bit of a lower line. Have they got enough room to be able to cross clearly Lutz Boyka? It looks like they do just about get across, but they had given away a bit of distance there on the Germans, but the Danish have got away with it. They're not far off that ley line, so Lutz Boyka won't be able to go too much further before they tack.
Yeah, nice picture here. We see all three of these boats that tacked over in a line. And
top boat looks like it's got mainsail ease. They're really letting it rip.
Yeah, it does look like a different mode, and we saw on the tracker, Jursak and Lorenz were in a higher mode, Schutt and Nilsby, Nilsby and Schutt on a little bit of a lower mode, but it's free sailing, so there are a few different options to get your VMG, or at least try for your VMG. They're also they can reach across the top and put a little damage into everyone, so pretty good position for them to be in.
Beautiful conditions, charging along. And it's really hot today as well. It's so rare. I was speaking to a local just before we went on air. Oh, the Dutch just tacking away, so they're obviously in some bad air. So forced out, that's going to be an extra 2 manoeuvres for them, which in these conditions I think will be quite expensive for the Dutch.
Yeah, we do have to keep an eye on them. There's no particular indication that the far side has overly paid. We can just see Sweden 22, Bobek and Tenstrom below Germany 55 there. So, Offerman and De Ruyter aren't losing that extra spot they need just yet. But could get close here, and any puff from the right could really put them in danger. We see, I think that's Jursak and Lorenz tagging soft back up left now. It does look very soft in the middle here.
It looks stronger on the far side. I wonder if the right is coming back with a little bit more power right now. And I wonder if Jursak and Lorenz are sailing away from the best breeze.
Just looking at our leaders, they also look soft, the Danes. So they've got quite a hefty lead. Confirmation here of just how light it is. Annika Lorenz there, crouched in on the wire.
Well, I think we could be looking at a big shake-up here. I think it must feel like very tense times right now on board this boat.
They've tacked to cover the Dutch, who they're looking at, and now they've got a little bit of breeze back. So the job for Jursak Lorenz is relatively easy. They just have to keep ahead of the Dutch, and they're more than safe. But for both those teams, they're now really far leveraged left, and it could be that the right's coming in, so they wouldn't want to gamble too much on it, because there is a possibility that Schutt and Nilsby can go all the way up the leaderboard.
It does look breezier on the far side. So, yes, okay, I understand the Germans in the picture right now have got their eye on Offerman from the Netherlands because they're the closest threat for the gold medal. But there is a bigger picture to think about. So there is the match race between the top two placed boats in this regatta right now. Germans tacking to leeward of the Dutch. But what price have they paid compared with the rest of the fleet, and will that matter?
Yeah, they now have the entire rest of the fleet leveraged of them. It doesn't look great right now anywhere. I mean, it looks quite a bit lighter than we saw in the last beat. But that just makes you wonder where the next puff's coming in. If you look at the very top boat right now, they're moving quicker than the boat even just beside them.
Well, look at Bad Nielsen doing 10 knots. So Bad, we haven't just looking up the top left at the numbers. So these boats now, the first and second overall, they look like they're back into decent breeze now. So maybe they're off the hook.
But you're right, Bad Nielsen's up at 8 knots and the others are at 6. So an indication that there is at least a small puff on the right. And it's tightened up a lot here. Schutt and Nilsby are now crossing Offerman and De Ruyter, and I'm a little bit surprised they're going to go outside here. They're now on ley line and going to have to possibly pile in at the windward mark. Yeah,
tactically that's surely a giveaway by Denmark 49 to get over that side. Depends how much ley line is left, but I think that's a bit of a tactical mistake by Denmark.
And again, I'll just draw your attention to the top right-hand side. There are boats moving pretty quickly up there. They're not going to get across the leaders, I don't think, but they might end up in the mix with this medal conversation.
Oh, so there's the win mark. Okay, so not so bad by Denmark 49. Now the question is, are they able to tack in front to Germany 55? And it looks like they've got enough distance and pace for Denmark 49 to hold on to their lead, but it's certainly a diminished lead. Just tacking right in front of Yurtsok and Lawrence.
Yeah, so that's perfectly legal. They're outside the 3 boat length zones. That was actually good placement from them to make sure that they weren't going to be inside the zone. And Yurtsok and Lorenz maybe just had to luff up a tiny bit, which is perfectly legal. And they've tightened up. Yurtsok and Lorenz and Offerman de Ruyter locked in their battle, but Yurtsok and Lorenz looking really comfortable now. They'd have to fall all the way back about 4 places or 5 places on this run to be in any danger of losing the gold. Schutt and Nielsby, good chance here for them to come up and take 3rd place, and then de Ruyter and Offerman pretty comfortable for the silver. So we're seeing 1, 2, 3 in the overall standings, 1, 2, 3 in the race, not quite in the same order that we think they're going to finish overall, but good sailing from those 3, showing why they deserve to be at the top of this table.
Yurtsok and Lawrence
Look at the difference in wind. Just a few moments ago, they were all crouched in upwind, and now they're back of the straps going as hard as they can downwind.
So, yeah, very variable breeze. In the end, it wasn't as much of a shake-up as I thought was going to happen. It really looked like the breeze was softening out for the leaders in that final beat. But Annika Lawrence just drops herself down on the trapeze. That's a clear indication that the breeze is up. Back up again, though.
Just staying comfortable. When it's this puffy and shifty, you need a little bit of extra distance from the water to go with. And look at the downwind sailing there from the Danish. So they're chasing that puff that they must have felt a little bit of lightness from. Look how much more wind they're in than when Yurtsok and Lorenz jibe. So the really good sailing from the Danish as they chase that puff downwind. If you get it right, you can stay in the puff all the way, a single puff all the way downwind. Of course,
that's exactly what's happened. I mean, the Yurtsok just not jibing quite as soon as the Danes. If Yurtsok had jibed a little bit earlier, maybe they would have got into that gust, but it was a very localized gust.
Yeah, Yurtsok and Lorenz just playing protective of Offerman and de Ruyter, and why shouldn't she, or why shouldn't they? They'll be half a leg away from their first ever Kiel Week victory, and with their direct competition in a comfortable spot. So those two will be just concentrating right now, but also very comfortable in where they are on the race course. Lutz and Boyka had Germany 29 had an opportunity to make a few passes that they didn't get. Look at that. The Danes have now sailed out of that puff we were talking about, but have continued on. And Yurtsok and Lorenz have taken a header and catching them up a little bit. Also now they've sailed into the light patch. So bit of waiting going on. I think there's a puff from behind. They're all kind of looking over their shoulders, hoping to get.
Does look very breezy up where that big boat is behind them, so could just be coming into some good breeze now.
Still pretty centered in the race course, so teams could go either way. They tend to all be continuing on port, probably a bit of a header. And we can see Schutt and Nielsby have extended again, found some better breeze. Nice jibe there, so they're on ley line now, and just about a few hundred meters to go to the finish line. Looks like they'll secure their victory. Yurtsok and Lorenz jibe straight in front of their teammates, Lutz Boyka.
Looks like Ned 64 front of picture is in a little bit lighter breeze now.
So, yeah, it looks like they're going to drop a spot right in the end here to Lutz Boyka. I think the finish line's a tiny bit skewed, favoring the far side of the line. And let's see if we can. Oh, it's super close.
It's very, very close across
Actually, I think Offerman and de Ruyter got that.
Maybe they did. Well, look at the high five. They're very happy with the way they finished. And you know what? They actually closed in to just 2 points off the gold medal. So just right at the end, that was extremely close. There wasn't another boat there. They needed one more boat to be able to affect the outcome. But with Lutz Boyka as the sandwich between the gold and silver medalists, that has ended up with Yurtsok Lawrence. Yes, they've won their first Kiel Week after many years of trying, but they've only won it by 2 points ahead of the young Dutch in Ned 64 Wilhelmine Offerman and
Just a
Elise de
replay
Ruyter.
here of that finish, and the Dutch surged right at the line. So did Lutz and Boyka. To be honest, Gersock and Lorenz had backed off, knowing that the victory was secure. But look how little distance there was in it. 3 more boats piled across the line in very quick succession, only a couple seconds of real time back. And had any of those boats been ahead of Gersock and Lorenz, they would have taken the victory away from Gersock Lorenz and handed it to de Ruyter and Offerman. But victory for Gersock and Lorenz. Popular sailors on tour, they will be thrilled with that. They haven't had the greatest season, but they're focused and clearly sailing well these days.
Yeah, congratulations to them. It's been after many years of trying, and they do so much training here in Kiel. And finally, they've managed to win that gold medal on home water. So congratulations to them. Congratulations also to the young Dutch who have won the silver medal, Wilhelmine Offerman and Elise de Ruyter. And the bronze goes to the winner of the medal race, and that was Schutt and Nielsby, who really sailed a fantastic race.
The race was looking quite predictable halfway through and really did become a mixed bag out there as that second beat kind of fell apart. The wind was all over the place. I think everyone took some puffs, but also some lulls, and those lulls are stressful to deal with. So I'm impressed with how Gersock and Lorenz dealt with that. When it got a little bit tougher, they knew their game plan was to stick with Offerman and de Ruyter, and that they did. It ended up that side ended up paying, but probably they would have been fine no matter what. And their strategy paid off because ultimately it was very close, and they secured the victory with some comfort, if not a lot of comfort.
And in the end, Schutt Nielsby, they got the bronze medal fairly comfortable. We'll just look at the analytics and see there. So not particularly high speed by Offerman.
We do see Schutt Nielsby with the highest average speed, which possibly confirms what we saw in that upwind with using a slightly lower mode. They also got off the pin really well, so they were able to sail pretty high average speeds upwind compared to some of them, and took the highest average speed of that race.
But highest top speed on the downwind was Gersock Lawrence, our gold medal winners. Quite a click of pace on the other boats downwind.
We see the Offerman black results in all 3 categories. So that shows that they were, not standout in everything, but sailing a pretty neutral path, I'd say. Not overly fast, not overly high, right down the middle, and able to take that to a very good finish.
And though the seconds finish, it was just 5 seconds back to Grosser and Klinger, so that was effectively a 5-second victory to win the gold medal over the Dutch. So Germany wins the gold, Dutch win the silver, Danes win the bronze, and another Danish team, maybe the more fancy Danish team, normally miss out after that awful start.
Yeah, really disappointing that they didn't manage to get off the start line and factor into this race at all. Not really sure what they were doing when they were reaching below the start line. But, Nielsen and Olsen, this is a missed opportunity for them. They were leading. They had great days in the light wind, and really these conditions are typically ones they're comfortable in. But they never got off the start line, and we never saw them factor in the race. They did move up into 6, so they were doing good work out in the water, but not enough to try and factor in for that gold.
Now, Annemiek Beckering and Annette Doots, the reigning world champions, in 10th place down there. What happened to them?
I don't think we saw them in the race, so possibly they've gone home. Did we see them in the water?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, they did not compete. That just seems a bit strange. But if they choose not to compete, does that mean that 11th can... Whoever's
there's a rule in the notice of race that says you must attempt to compete. I suppose barring injury or something, but I did see them on shore the other day, and there doesn't appear to be any injuries or anything the matter. So I'm not sure why they didn't come out today.
Okay.
People have different plans. Maybe they booked flights already for something. I don't know.
No, fair enough.
And they weren't in contention for the overall here, so maybe they just decided to do something else. But a bit of a letdown because they do factor in. It is important to have all 10 boats in the medal race in order for there be more mix-up and more opportunities for passing. So we'll have to try and find out why they weren't there a little bit later.
Right. So 2 down, 1 to go on our live broadcast. There's also other medal races taking place today at Kiel Week. So we've got the fin, the laser radial, and there's a bunch of other classes still racing, which we've not really been focused on this week, but J70, J24. Sailing is the Kiel Week is a whole smorgasbord of sailboat racing, from the very smallest boats to some of the biggest, and 3.3 million people with the festival. Bearing in mind a lot of those people never even see a sailboat while they're here. There's just a lot of beer drinking and sausage eating and dancing in front of the big bands that are playing down in central Kiel, downtown, about 10 kilometres away from the sailing area. But it's a huge festival, firework displays, all kinds of stuff going on. I can't think of anything else like it.
No, it is unique. The other day, as the 49er racing was going very late into the evening, we saw all the hot air balloons coming back to Kiel, because there's a hot air balloon festival as part of Kiel Woche, and it's, dozens of these wonderful balloons floating in the blue sky. It's a wonder to see. And the sailing regatta is huge. 1,000 boats. I think they had a couple titles on the line here. The OK Dinghy Europeans or Worlds was on. The 29er something or other was on. Or maybe it was just regular Kiel Week, but there's 100 boats. We, on the second course, on the other medal race course, is happening simultaneously, we caught up with some of the Finn sailors as they were launching, and we caught up with Max Koloff. I think there were 5 or 6 teams who could have won. Unfortunately, Paul's brother Max also fared the way they did and didn't have the best race, so he finishes up in 5th, but congratulations to his teammate, Philip Kasuke from Germany, took the overall win in the Finn with his 3rd place across the line to win it by 2 places over Andre Tepi from the Czech Republic and Jake Lilly from Australia in 3rd. Very close from them, only 5 points separating the top 3. So there's good racing happening all over the place here in Kiel.
Okay, well, thanks for that, Ben. Meanwhile, we are building up towards the 49er men's medal race, and I understand that we got an interview earlier with Pete Burling, who is in this medal race. So let's hear from the reigning Olympic champion.
Peter, thank you very much for joining. So you're 10 points behind. Great conditions today out there. What are your expectations?
Yeah, it's great to see the medal race so close. I think it shows you how tricky this week's been. Blair and myself had a pretty tough Gold Fleet series, but we're just going out there to try and win the race, try and do as good as we can, and close out the series on a high.
So tell us, what's the game plan for today?
Pretty much what I just said. Just going out there to try and win the race and close out the regatta on a high. There's a few boats incredibly close on points and a couple with a little jump, so it's all to play for. Who's
going to be the biggest rival? The Polish guys, maybe?
Yeah, I think anyone in the top 10's are pretty good, and there's a really high standard at this fleet, so it's something that everyone's going to be hard to beat. So we're just trying to go out there and do as good as we can.
We keep our fingers crossed. All the best. Thank you very much, Peter. Zurück zu euch, Jungs.
Cheers.
Yeah, so Pete Burling and Blair Tuke not having it all their own way. They were leading for a good chunk of this regatta when the breeze was up, but when the breeze dropped light, it became anyone's game. And it's pretty much anyone's game going into this medal race. So we've got 10 boats competing. 9 of those can win the gold medal.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. It's going to be a trick for us to explain it all to you, as so many teams can win. We've got, like you said, 10 boats in the medal race. 9 countries in the medal race. 9 of them can win the gold medal, and all of them can win at least the bronze medal. So everyone that you're going to see on screen here is going to be fighting tooth and nail for every point they can get. It's a total points difference of only 20 points between first and 10th, 19 points between first and 10th, and all of these teams that are in this medal race have at times won 49er championships and been on podiums, so there's no shortage of experience, and that's why we saw a 90-boat fleet of 49ers come to Kiel, is because when the best get together to race, it's a really valuable tool, and these boats, all these teams today will be looking to do their best in the medal race, playing out all the scenarios ahead of time, practicing that skill of sailing in these medal race conditions when it matters.
So the Olympic Test Regatta is coming up in Japan fairly soon. Then there's Sailing World Cup in Japan. Then you've got the World Championships at the end of the year in New Zealand. We've pretty much got a World Championship lineup. Not everyone will be able to compete at the Test Regatta because it's generally 1 boat per nation. With the exception of Dylan Fletcher and Stu Bithell from Great Britain, who aren't here, we're pretty much looking at everyone in the world here at Kieler Woche. So this is like a World Championship medal race, isn't it?
Yeah, it's certainly got the any championship could see these sailors in it. Obviously there's another 10 or so or even 25 boats who think they should be in this conversation, but there's no arguing with the talent that we're seeing here. There's only one boat that's got a 3-digit sail number signifying they've never been top 25 at Worlds. That's Erwin Fischer and Clement Paquin, but they're junior world champions from 2 or 3 years ago. So also very experienced in that French team, sailing very well. They're the only French team to make the top 10 here, and 4 of them came, including the teams who came 2nd and 8th at Worlds. So that shows you how deep the fleet is here, and we had a good set of conditions. Burling there in the interview alluded to how tricky it was in the lighter racing, and it was. The scores, were all over the place, but it's not because it was bad racing. It's because there's so many teams that can excel in that condition.
Yeah, well, they did so much of the hard work. They were made to do a penalty turn off the start line yesterday for a Rule 42 infringement. That means they were doing some kind of illegal sculling or movement of the boat, which the on-the-water judges deemed to be illegal. They got slapped with the penalty, and in a very short and very light airs windward leg, somehow they found this magic corridor up to 9th place by the windward mark. I thought that was an incredible comeback. But we didn't get to see the full track of what they did downwind, but by the bottom gate they've gone from 9th to 22nd. I mean, that's almost unheard of for Burling and Chuk to have a fall like that. So it just shows how competitive, but also how hard it was out there.
Yeah, it's not easy for anyone, and no quarter is given. So all these teams will rate themselves on the start line. There won't be any intimidation from the big number one on the sail. These teams will relish the chance to actually take a piece of them. When you're on top, everyone's gunning for you, and that's why they're here, because they want to go through the battles as they try and prepare to defend their gold medal. But all these teams are ambitious. Our leaders, Lucas Cibitek and Paweł Kodiński, they're probably the most veteran team in this medal race, and I don't think I've seen them on the top of a major podium in quite a while. So they'll be looking to get back on top. Very often, sort of between 4th and 8th place for that team. They had a chance to win the European Championship last year and didn't have the medal race go the way they wanted. So this is another chance for them to try and emerge from a medal race. They'll be after this race when all 10 teams can win. Only one's going to win. There's going to be people saying, it matters of significance in terms of the timing and can you get up for the big race. It'll be interesting to see after this race whether we think it was something that a team really grasped and rose to the occasion, or if it was just another race that happened to be the last one. It's an interesting way to think about it. And it's certainly, from what we've seen in the Nacra and the FX racing, it's very tricky on the water. So I don't know that teams are going to be able to round a leeward mark and say, this is the way to go, I know it. They're going to have to keep their wits about them. They're going to have to be looking upwind and analyzing constantly for where the wind pressure is and where the angles are. So here's the leaderboard as we head into this medal race.
So that gives you a measure of just how tight things are. The Poles just 1 point in front of the top Kiwis, Dunningbeck and Gunn, and then 7 points back to Will and Sam Phillips from Australia. James Peters and Finn Sterrett of Great Britain, ranked world number 1 at the moment, 4th with 51 points, just 1 point in front of the reigning Olympic champions, Burling and Chuk. Botin and Mara from Spain looking really strong in the latter stages of this regatta in light winds, on equal points with Burling and Chuk. Bilstein Hussel from Austria just 1 point back. Fischer Pecan from France just 3 points back from the Austrians. The reigning world champions, the Fantellas from Croatia, on 57 points, and the only boat that can't win the gold medal but can still at least win a medal is Fischer and Graf from Germany. And McCarty and Mackenzie, well, they finished on equal points in the Gold Fleet racing, but McCarty and Mackenzie from New Zealand won't be competing in this medal race.
Yeah, it's super tight. We saw Button and Mara, the Spaniards, have to drop out of a race earlier in the week. That cost them a bunch of points. Otherwise, they've sailed the best of anyone, so that little upset. But a lot of teams can say that. Black flags, if I didn't have the black flag, if I hadn't made this maneuver. So it's all come together after quite a few races here. We've got 10 races in the books on this, and the fleet's super close. I'm excited for this one.
What concerns me about Cibitek and Kolizinski was they had a chance to win that race yesterday. and they dropped to third in the end. And they just looked like they looked a bit nervous when they got in the lead. They started to overthink the race a little bit.
It did look like that, and they did say they just couldn't figure out what to do, and were just doing a little too much covering. And I think, to further your concern, this is the type of race where I think being decisive is going to be important, because we saw how tricky it is and how many lulls there are. And if you're a little bit nervous going into the lulls, maybe you do a couple extra tacks that you really didn't need to, and ultimately that costs you the difference. So let's see if they regrouped overnight, and if they can learn something from that last race we saw on the tracking or on the live broadcast yesterday. It wasn't their best moment, but I mean, they still came third in the race, so they hardly threw it all away. But every point's going to count today. Also, I'm interested to see if Logan Dunningbeck and Oscar Gunn, the younger New Zealand pair, who sailed really well at the Europeans just 6 weeks ago, but then fell off sort of in the final day or two, if they can have learned from that experience. And they've got 7 points clear on third, so they'll be probably the team that's most likely to be aggressive and try and go for something here, because they've got a little bit less to lose than everyone else. If they can take over the poles, they only need to come sort of tops 4 or 5 to guarantee the victory.
5 minutes to the start, not long until we see all of this play out. Dunningbeck and Gunn, any other nation would take them, wouldn't they? But they are one of those unfortunates. Well, it's sort of a double-edged sword. You get to train with the best in the world, Burling and Tuke, on a regular basis, and they beat them from time to time as well. The strength of the Kiwi squad right now is incredible, but at the same time they are going to have to sail out of their skins and beat Burling and Tuke on a regular basis if they are going to get selected for Tokyo 2020.
Yeah, it is a selection committee down in New Zealand, which makes the challenge even tougher, I'd say, because they've got to unseat the number ones. They considered actually quitting when they heard that Burling and Tuke were coming back. So daunting was the task of trying to overcome such champions, but they decided, they're still young, very young. They can stick with it, and training with the world champions is certainly something that any team would relish. And they've got a chance here to put another bow in the quiver and take a shot.
Well, on the left, we see New Zealand 77 doing a test run. That's Pete Burling and Blair Tuke, and we're on board with them now. And they got their boots on today. They quite often sail barefooted, but that suggests that they think the breeze is up and it's not worth risking stubbing your toe.
Look how active Blair is on that main sheet there. So it's not the sort of condition where they're really steady. He's going to make an adjustment there. See if he can get to a position where he has to be less active with the main sheet. Typically in a 49er, if you've got it set up just right, you don't have to make such frequent adjustments to the main sheet, so they just let off the vang again, and I think they'll about to head downwind. But the breeze is up, at least right now. I mean, that's a good wind condition. The fact that they had to let up the vang there to bear off tells you that it was one step, and then they go into the planing jibe to get the boom across very easily. So they did their warm-up run there. I wouldn't have said that was perfectly tuned, but you did see Blair make a small adjustment, and maybe it's just too shifty to not adjust, so we'll see.
Beautiful two-sail jibe we saw by them as well. And Blair Tuke got his face well covered with white zinc.
Top tip there from one of the best in the world. Make sure you cover up out there, sailors, especially in the middle of summer. Lots of hours under that direct sunlight.
Now, this is probably Fisher and Graf that we're with.
Yeah, nice boot shot as the camera is set up for when everyone's trapezing. But they go for their tack. And
so this is the only team that can't win the gold medal, Fisher and Graf. That's Germany 3.
That's our overall leader right there. Poland 42. Przybyskie and Kolodinsky. Przybystek and Kolodinsky.
Just 2 minutes to go. And yes, the polls certainly present one of the biggest challenges to us overseas commentators, don't they? The names they use, and seems like there must be a tax on vowels with the Polish government.
Just a tack there by Bilstein and Husel, very close to the poles. I'm a little bit surprised. They ended up reaching off, so they didn't stay close. The team's now setting up on the line, trying to work out where they're going to sit.
Quite far back, aren't they, at the moment?
I'm just looking at the Austrians there, so I wonder if they're trying to gauge which is the spot that they can set up to and win the pin. Also, the Fantula brothers, Croatia number 1, sitting in a position that looks a little bit like a spot they think they can win the pin from. They're just going into 2 more tacks because no one's calling them on it. The tricky thing is if you take too much space, then someone will come underneath you. We don't know for sure if they all want the pin or not. Actually, the fleet's not lining up super early like they want the pin right now. More of them moving up towards the boat.
Which side of the first beat do you fancy, Ben? We've seen both sides pay so far.
Yeah, I think I'd play the forecast, and if there wasn't a big lift off the start, I'd be trying to get right in hopes that the wind does go right for one of the beats. While we're there, we just see Fisher now lining up to take the pin. We see Burling and Tuke, 77 on port, moving up the line. They've just found a spot just above the Austrians, below the Polish. And now we see the Fantel brothers sneaking out backwards. They don't like that spot anymore. They moved away from it. Phillips brothers to the right of screen. They're in third place overall. We haven't talked about them yet, but certainly they're looking for their first victory. And now we see Fantelis basically committed to the port tack start here. Wonder which, if they want to be early. There's half the fleet's on port, so that's why it's going to be. Now Fischer Graf also bail out and go on port. So do the Austrians. I wonder if a shift's come in here, and we don't know why exactly. We've got so many boats all committed to port at such a late task. The Burling and Tuke are going to get a free run at the pin here, but there's only the Poles with them.
Everyone else is going to go right.
Yeah, so just
2 seconds to go. Burling and Tuke do win the pin, and it was easily won with the series leaders.
Bit of a disaster for the Phillips brothers. They committed to the port tack option first, but then had no space for themselves as Fischer and Graf took the last spot. So bad break for the Phillips brothers as they weren't aggressive enough in taking a port hand spot. Burling and Tuke shooting off the boat. They'll be thrilled to just take the pin and run with it, I think. Same with our overall leaders, the Poles, Kolodinski.
In a very good position compared with the Kiwis. I mean, the Kiwis look like they're beginning to stretch ahead now, but that was a good start by the Poles.
You see Pete and Blair, they looked over their shoulder there, so they're definitely conscious of where the boat is. My guess is they'd want to tack. And we see the third boat in the lineup, Dunningbeck and Gunn. They tacked, so did the Poles, and now so did the Kiwis. So the whole fleet heading right. And
replay of the start. Kiwis coming in at the start.
Look how good that is from Fantala. So he squeezes up high so he doesn't give up the distance down instead of reaching, and is able to now sail totally free, just has to wait for that gun.
I'd say possibly an even better start by Fischer and Graf just above them. But we're back with the race, and Burling and Tuke have a marginal lead on the left-hand side, so winning the pin seemed to be worth it.
Yeah, the Spanish farthest right. Just a little bit tough to tell from this tracking whether or not, I think they're still on port. So everyone's heading to the right still.
Fischer and Graf on the right hand, they've just gone out of picture. They are head to wind. I'm not sure what's up with them. Have they broken a tiller extension? Or no, they've got 2 tiller extensions, and they're getting going now. So it was a clean start. It didn't go back round. But something went badly wrong for Fischer and Graf. They're not in gold medal contention anyway. They're probably not going to win a medal now.
Dreams of the heroic rise from 10th to 3rd, not going to happen for that too. But we can focus here on the rest of the race. Fantala brothers, close in picture.
Look at how much higher and faster on starboard the boat is at top of picture. The Fantalas are just not in the best breeze right now.
And that's, I think, the Kiwis in second place right now. Logan Dunningbeck and Oscar Gunn. Oh, Fischer and Graf had a capsize.
Okay, that's pretty unusual.
Surprising, bit of an unforced error there, but they got it back up and off and going.
So it looks like, Ben, you called the right. You wanted to be on the right-hand side up this beat. I put you on the spot. From what we can tell, the right seems to be the better place to be at the moment.
And just look how patchy it is. Like Burling and Tuke are just on the edge of the puff, where their teammates Beck and Gunn are in a better position, and they're able to surge forward here. So Burling and Tuke just on the edge of the better pressure. Prisbedek and Kolodinski, they've got to be reasonably happy with how this is going so far as well. Now, they'd be happier still if it wasn't New Zealand 7 also doing well. But we just see Peters and Starrett factoring into the overall conversation here. Burling and Tuke and Prisbedek and Kolodinski have been locked neck and neck for this whole beat, so far matching all 3 tacks upwind. Probably not on purpose. The 2 of them just happened to line up beside each other. At the back of the fleet here with the Phillips brothers, we saw them have that poor start. But they are down in last place of the teams that didn't capsize, so they'll be looking to pull a bit of a trick up. Bit wobbly there, not their best sailing, I don't think, as they go in for attack. Might have been a header, and that's what we saw, the wobble, and then they tack on it to get onto the lifted side. But they're still in contention. I think that might have been the Austrians. They were just ducking.
Burling and Tuke, bottom left of picture, New Zealand 77, sailing out with the regatta leaders going into this race, the yellow jersey wearers, and that's the Phillips just passing behind. So the Phillips not doing too bad, but there's
big keel boat in the middle of the course. My goodness, that's a big wind shadow.
It's not going to hurt Phillips, but it could hurt the boat beneath them.
Look at the keel boat realizing what he's done and now luffing up and making life even worse for the Austrians. So that's a type of unforced situation you can encounter here in Kiel. And now it's a beautiful Sunday.
It's affecting the Australians as well, so that unfortunately for the Australians and the Austrians, that's going to drop them down the order. That's really unfortunate.
Yeah, just looking here at the Spanish, who were the furthest right of the leading group, and they're, I don't know if they're on Willet line or not there, but they're looking very comfortable. Second on the virtual, as we see them jump up the standings, along with Peters and Sterrett. So that the right has really come in here. The teams that tacked and were underneath that puff have really suffered, and even the Phillips, even despite that error, like look at Bildstein and Husel. So just in the last little bit, this left-hand corner has come light again. We did see that a couple times in the earlier racing.
And right, a picture we see the number one of the Fantellas, the reigning world champions. They started out to the right, but then they must have tacked back, and they've tacked to the wrong side of the course. They had every opportunity to get to the right-hand side, which is the correct side, as we've seen so far, but it's not done them any good. This is Burling and Tuke racing side by side with the yellow jerseys from Poland, Poland 42.
Yeah, the two of these teams obviously seeing the race course the same way, locked in step the whole way across. Burling and Tuke getting slightly the better of them, but the Poles holding their own as well in terms of speed and angle. But we look at the young Kiwis, Gunn and Beck and Logan Gunn. They were having a really great race there. They obviously were close enough that the French wanted to tack underneath them and not have to do a cross and then attack back. So good position for that team, and good chances that they're going to move into the overall leading position here and take a victory. As the leaderboard sits right now, we've got Dunningbeck and Gunn in first on 49 points, Peters and Sterrett in second on 53 points, and Prisbitek and Kolodinsky in third at 54 points. So that's your overall leaderboard right now, with lots of sailing left to come.
So GBR 5 left a picture. They are in the silver medal position, 4 points away, just 2 places on the race course off the gold medal. The Spanish, they are in 5th place at the moment, and so they've still got a chance of getting into the medals, as pretty much every boat does out here.
Nice puff for the teams on the farthest right, so they're going to get a chance to come back in some breeze. Peters and Sterrett on the ley line now, heading into the mark, and they've got a nice healthy margin. You know, nothing they can get a nice set and go either way that they please, and just do their boat handling without fear from behind. Let's see what they do. Yeah, going for the jibe, so I'm not surprised. We did see that puff come in right at the end. Let's see if they can avoid Bildstein and Husel, who have had enough upset up the beat, but good sailing from both teams there just to get clear of each other. And let's see if Dunn
Oh, this could be significant, because Dunningbeck and Gunn didn't have the choice to jibe set if they wanted to.
No, they didn't. And Burling and Tuke do go for the jibe. I'm a little bit surprised the Spanish didn't, but now Burling and Tuke, you know, they've got to suffer through that bit of a lull. But if they can get to the puff ahead, it doesn't look fantastic for them, does it? But you can see Peters and Sterrett looks good.
I think it was just picking up for Burling and Tuke. They were just getting into the gust. Going around in quite a bit of breeze here. Phillips have jibed on the right-hand side. Red Jenica's gone up. Austria coming towards us. Still trying to get that blue Jenica set. Bit of a messy hoist. Bit of a tea bag for the Austrians.
You know, Fisher and Graf, having capsized, caught up a lot. So there's huge passing lanes out there. Phillips Brothers also in contention, but they'll be disappointed with how they've sailed so far, starting the day in 3rd place. Big split here from the leaders. Dunningbeck and Gunn in contention for the win, and so are Peters and Sterrett, if they can get a few more boats up ahead of them. I'm liking the way Burling and Tuke are in positioned up there, so could be their opportunity to leap up the leaderboard. They rounded just behind the Spanish when this leg started, so it depends a little bit on how the angle the Spanish get here on the downwind.
So Peters and Sterrett leading this race, the yellow line stretching away from this, and they've really pulled away from the rest of the fleet. Dunningbeck and Gunn, that's who we're looking at now. They are our overall leaders. They would win the gold medal as things stand right now, but they've got a lot of boats around them. And Burling and Tuke on the far side, their fellow Kiwis, could be one of the boats that gets in the way of them getting the gold medal. Really good breeze. Boats charging downwind. This must be some of the biggest breeze we've seen so far today. Boat leaping off the waves. This is flat water, but the boat's still leaping.
Yeah, pretty lit up here. Not quite at maximum wind speed, so the boat speeds are at 16 knots. They do go up to about 22 at the very hottest wind speeds. Look at the header that Peters and Sterrett are taking into this leeward mark, almost heading straight down the course right now.
And you wonder, I mean, it looks like there has been a big right-hand shift, and has this caught some of the boats out?
I think it's mostly been pressure, because if you look at Burling and Tuke, they're also super deep, although maybe they're still on port. Do you think they're on the first jibe still?
I think they might be. I think they're only just jibing now. So Dunningbeck and Gunn look like they've just got away with it, but they're very much on the edge. And you can see the way the boat's leaning over. The leaders are on the edge. But in runs Finn Sterrett, gets that white Jenica down, ready to do the drop. And it's a jibe drop, so it's a difficult maneuver.
Wow, great handling there. Just able to stop at the exact right moment without pulling the sails on, wait for both people to get in position to trapeze, and then accelerate. Really good boat handling in what could be a tricky spot.
Burling and Tuke look like they've moved up into second.
They have from fifth to second on that run. They went for the jibe set, and it's paid off. And they're also digging into what's been the windier side, which it surprised me a little bit what Peters and Sterrett did. Dunningbeck and Gunn follow their teammates to the right. I would expect with such a big shift that they might tack fairly soon. Spanish also did well in that run. They were the first to jibe. Oh, wide rounding here. I'm not sure why. Okay. Bit tricky, but now that
Poland
we see
dropped a long way back. Look how
sure
far
have.
Poland had dropped back, because Burling and Tuke were next to them just now. Fischer and Graf rounding from Germany. Austria charging in. Going to go for the far mark.
Yeah,
Fantella's dropping Jenica. They've not had a good run.
So
we saw.
I can tell from the virtual here that Peters and Sterrett have tacked to come back across, obviously sensing the danger of the far side. Burling and Tuke dug in the farthest with Dunningbeck and Gunn doing what I thought they might be the best tactic there, of just going a little bit into the new wind and then taking the lift. But Burling and Tuke look like they're in a good position, and now all three leaders reconverge with Peters and Sterrett still in a comfortable lead.
Yes, but I do wonder if they're on a bit of a down, and they are actually just tacking there now. So they're in a good loose cover position for both the Kiwis chasing behind them. That's really good positioning.
That's what the fleet calls getting in phase, and you can see how quickly all three of these top teams got in phase with the wind, getting through the mess of the leeward marks, everyone having clear maneuvers and clear lanes, but then getting in phase as soon as they can up this beat and positioning themselves how they want to. Pretty good example of top sailing there.
Smart sailing by Peters and Sterrett. We're looking at them here. GBR5 chasing down this gold medal, but they're in silver medal position at the moment.
I think they're just a little bit down right now. So, if you're totally free, you might tack on a header. But also, I wonder now that they're sandwiched between their two rivals, if they're going to sort of take the header and just sit in position. But in a fleet race, that can be dangerous. So, bit of a challenge there in terms of how much patience they can have. But so far, they're showing they're remaining patient. Good
Looks like
work
the Spanish
here.
are closed in on them.
Yeah, so I thought there was a header on starboard, which is a lift on port. So the Spanish are taking that lift and going to what I think is the slightly favored side. So I really like the Spanish ambition here on this beat.
Peters and Sterrett going into attack, but I wonder if the Spanish might even move ahead of it. It's a bit hard to tell from this camera angle.
Just confirmation on the virtual leaderboard that the Spanish have moved into basically a tie for second. They're bouncing back and forth with Dunningbeck and Gunn. And Burling and Tuke are also on that gain line. So still shifty out there. Nice to see the breeze not putting a lot of holes in the race course, because that's always a bit ugly. But a little bit of shifts always keeps things interesting.
And this is very, very tight for the gold medal right now. Dunningbeck and Gunn, they are still holding the gold medal position at the moment. Peters and Sterrett need to get some more boats between them and Dunningbeck and Gunn.
This advance from the Spanish has also put them into a tie for third overall, with Prisbatek and Kolodinsky falling down the table. So the Spanish have moved themselves into the medal conversation.
And Burling and Tuke are also in the hunt for that bronze medal right now.
As of the Phillips brothers, actually, only a couple points back as well. They've had a good beat so far, being the farthest right boat other than the Fantelas. Lots to play for here. Like these shifts are going to play out, and a few places are going to change here, and it's going to make the difference between medals and not.
Peters and Sterrett on the left-hand side, putting a loose cover on most of the boats. We got half the fleet in shot there. GBR5 charging along on the left of picture. Burling and Chuk, NZL 77 in the middle of picture.
Just out of picture, just to the right, are where Dunningbeck and Gunn are. So they've stayed right on the hip of Peters and Sterrett and are keeping pace as well. That's how they're able to maintain their 6-point lead right now overall over Peters and Sterrett, with Burling and Chuk on the virtual moving into second right now, benefiting from that right side positioning.
Peters and Sterrett sailing really solidly here, keeping it quite simple, not doing too many tacks.
We're seeing the Fantilla brothers, who were the far...
I'm not sure. I'm not sure that the Fantillas are popping in occasionally on that leaderboard. I'm not sure that's a realistic representation of where they are.
I think the windward mark might have just been moved right. So we were seeing a previous set of ley lines, and now if they moved the mark during the race right, that does put the Fantillas back in conversation, because I think we're going to see the teams having to go out to that ley line. Earlier we didn't have confirmation of the moved mark, but now Burling and Chuk heading into the Fantillas.
So you think maybe some of the teams have been slow on the uptake in terms of spotting the change of course?
No, I just think we were.
Right.
But Peters and Sterrett actually in a left phase right now, so doing really well. Just had a left shift come in, so Dunningbeck and Gunn have taken that and are now really solidly in front. We can see that now crossing Fantilla brothers. So the Fantilla brothers were looking like they were in a crossing position, but they've just missed this shift. The teams in the middle of the course have been able to pick it up, and since they were already on port, taking it as a lift and really extended on the pack there. So Burling and Chuk's settling back, and we're also seeing on the virtual leaderboard Pibutek and Kolodinsky moving up. So they've found some magic on the left-hand side of the course. If we just look at the virtual for a second, we can get a full lay of the, if we can.
So New Zealand, Logan Dunningbeck just going into attack there. Quite a lot of roll on that tack. GBR5 leading up towards this top mark. Dunningbeck and Gunn, they managed to overtake some boats, including Burling and Chuk, who've had a bad beat. Caught a little bit too much on the right-hand side.
Yeah, just not able to finish up. They were looking good when the right was in, but now the left has come in. Now we're looking at the virtual here, and we can see Botten and Mara, who are at one point tied with the Polish on the virtual. Poland just outside them have come back into the conversation here and are sitting in fourth in the virtual. So really good beat from the Polish just when they needed to.
Peters and Sterrett doing all they can. All they can do is lead this race and hope that the chips behind them fall to their favour. But to see Dunningbeck and Gunn coming round in second, that's not good news for the Brits.
Yeah, Peters and Sterrett now falling to third overall in the leaderboard, but really nice sailing here to take the lead in this race, followed by the young Kiwis, Dunningbeck and Gunn. Straight sets from both as we had the left phase of the wind come in, so that'll be a nice deep run, and it looks like good pressure. There's the Poles just going through screen. They're up into second overall right now based on this beat they've just had. But it's going to be really close to the windward mark with a bunch of other boats.
We are looking at the most likely winners of the gold medal right now, but still plenty could change in this race. We got the charge down to the finish, and Dunningbeck and Gunn have sailed a brilliant medal race, chasing hard on Peters and Sterrett from Great Britain.
Look how much these two teams were able to extend at the top of that beat. They were really close with the other pack until they got a left shift, and now that's gained them about 100 meters.
Big luffing match going on just out bottom of shot, so that's played into the hands of the boat that's just jibe set. That's Fisher and Pecan from France. But Burling and Chuk got caught out in a big luffing match by Chibatek and Kolodzinski.
We've seen those two beside each other the whole regatta, or the whole race so far, so not a huge surprise. They're still locked in, but that's a pretty expensive battle for Pibutek and Kolodinsky to be in. They need every point they can get here to maintain to their second place overall right now, and they won't be wanting just confirmation on the virtual that they've lost that jibing or that set battle with the leading Kiwis.
So Peters and Sterrett, they're definitely in contention for a medal, but
they're in bronze medal position right now, but only one more spot. If the Poles lose one more spot, they'll be up into silver, assuming they can hold on to this victory. They're pretty comfortable right now on second place, but that would be certainly a good result for them this week.
Peters and Sterrett absolutely charging downwind. They've looked really in control. We saw that beautiful jibe drop maneuver around the bottom gate mark. So faultless boat handling. Peters looking over his shoulder occasionally, just checking in. He can see there's a big gap back to the Spanish and the rest of the fleet behind him. It's probably not going to... well, it's just Dunning Beck who's close behind them. After that, it's a big gap back to the Spanish. So all they can do is just keep on sailing fast, make sure they cross the finish line in first place, and hope that somebody manages to overtake the Poles.
Yeah, looking at the virtual leaderboard right now, the Poles are in a battle for 6th and 7th, down from 4th and 5th. So that's not that's not great news for them. They need these positions right here to maintain the silver medal position. Otherwise, it's going to go to the team we see winning this race, Peters and Sterrett. So great racing from them. They'll be thrilled here. They won't necessarily know how tight it is with the Poles right now in terms of what's happening to the Polish on this downwind. But they took the victory. They did all they can do. And now they wait and see. And this is the team next to finish that we... well,
nice near capsize there by the Brits. Long way back to Logan. There they go. So New Zealand 7. Dunning, Beck and Gunn cross the finish line in second place. But they win the gold medal.
See if these Kiwis are young enough to actually have a celebration or if they're going to be stoic. But, yeah, a little bit of a raised hand there. They'll be a bit tired, too. It was full-on racing, but great racing.
Some happy Kiwis there. Very happy about that.
Big smile, looking upwind. They don't need to really check in on how everyone's doing. Next across the line is going to be Botin and Mara, which is going to move them up into 4th, I believe, right now. And then just crossing the line next, out of picture, is going to be Burling and Tuke for 5th in the race, followed by Chibutek and Kolodinsky.
So Chibutek and Kolodinsky, looks like they've done just enough to hold on to the silver medal ahead of Peters and Sterrett, who won that medal race but are going to have to settle for bronze in what was such a competitive medal race.
Yeah, there weren't as many changes on that last run as I thought there might be. Once the wind filled in and there weren't as many lulls. But that second beat, so much was happening there. We had both sides looking great at times, but ultimately it was the teams that went up the middle and were able to take advantage of the shifts as they came that did the best. Really impressed with Peters and Sterrett sailing on that beat. As the leaders, you have to...
So we're waiting to get an interview with our gold medal winning New Zealanders, Logan Dunning-Beck and Oscar Gunn. Hopefully we'll get that very soon.
Fisher and Graf through. They'll be a little disappointed with how they did. No one wants to capsize in a race. They did fight themselves back into contention, but then dropped out once again. But
they had to take a penalty turn at the final windward mark, so they were already near the back, and then that put them squarely at the back.
Yeah, anyways, the young German team, one of the teams in contention for the Tokyo ticket. They were 3rd at last year's World, so definitely sailing well at times, but it's a tough battle, and they didn't win it today. But yeah, it's just like I was saying, I was really impressed with Peters and Sterrett, how they, as the leading boat, you have to choose one side of the gate, and you can never tell which way the other guys are going to go. So they chose the opposite side that the other two teams following them went, and quickly went back, got in phase, stayed right in the middle of the fray, and then were able to pick and choose which lifts and puffs they went through the rest of the race, and pulled out a very impressive lead.
They sure did, and they rose to the occasion. They did all that they could do. That was a high-pressure race, and they proved that they can perform under pressure. And so did the Poles. Poland 42, Chibutek and Kolodinsky. I expressed my doubts about them yesterday, but they got the silver medal. They hung in there. They raced around pretty much the whole track with Pete Burling and Blair Tuke.
No one had a tougher round than they did out there. I mean, they were locked in a tough position right from the start. They were kind of back in the lineup, but having to hold their lane in a tough spot, and then they were battling with Burling and Tuke, it seemed like, on every leg of the beat, and to be able to do what they needed to do, crossing the line in 5th place, and securing the silver overall is fantastic. Now we're just hearing over the race comms that there's been a protest lodged by the Germans, Now, you can only protest sort of procedural items, so I'm not sure exactly what procedural item they might have protested. We can
Maybe
see
we're
them.
going back to that capsize. Anyway, we'll go to an interview first, and then we'll let you know if we find out more. But we're about to go to the Kiwis.
And we didn't see any mix-up that the Kiwis were involved in. And whatever protest the Germans are in right now will have.
Gleich gerne weiter. What an impressive race. Congrats, guys. How much fun was it today?
Oh, it's beautiful here. It's warm, the wind's up, and it's really good fun.
And what does it mean for you to win this regatta here in Kiel?
It's pretty cool. We're pretty happy with how it's our first big regatta win, so we're happy with that.
How difficult or how easy was it today to get the win with all this gusty winds?
Oh, it's pretty funky out there. I think we sort of pulled a little rabbit out of the hat halfway up the second beat and just battled. Everyone struggled at times, but you just had to hang on.
Yeah, you had to struggle all the days yesterday and the day before yesterday. So today you had much more fun?
Yeah, the wind's up, the water's flat. It's good racing, good fun racing. The last 2 days were really stressful, and I think everyone was really up and down, so it made it an interesting regatta.
How tactical was racing today?
It was brutally tactical, if that's a way to put it. Guessing game at times, but you just had to try and get a couple of lifts and hold on till the end.
Do you have time to celebrate?
So pack up the containers and have a night out and then go home.
And have a beer?
Yeah, a few beers.
A few beers. Okay, ja, also ein paar Biere Zeit haben Sie noch, wenn Sie morgen erst zurückfliegen müssen. Und ja, damit gebe ich zu euch zurück. Ich glaube, die Biere, die haben wir uns nachher auch verdient nach 10 Tagen Kieler Woche.
So that's our gold medal winners from New Zealand, Logan Dunningbeck and Oscar Gunn. So a little bit younger than Pete Burling and Blair Tuke. Logan Dunningbeck only a couple of years younger than Pete Burling, but Oscar Gunn a full 10 years younger than Blair Tuke. So maybe one day when Burling and Tuke hang up their spurs, maybe there will be a chance for this team to go to the Olympic Games for New Zealand. Maybe I'm writing them off a little bit too early for Tokyo 2020 though, because Burling and Tuke, yeah, they were as good as anybody else in that race, but they weren't better than anybody else, were they? I mean, Burling and Tuke were one of a number of teams. There was nothing standout about their performance in that race just now that we saw.
No, I mean, what Burling and Tuke were able to do last quadrennial was incredible, winning every single regatta. To be honest, it's never been done in any Olympic class. So, you know, what they did last time is setting too high a standard for anyone. They've taken basically 18 months off this quad, and we shouldn't expect them to be back at the top.
So the analytics, one thing that stands out to me there is the Spanish very fast downwind. The top two boats in that race absolutely square for average speed around the race course with 11.65 knots, fastest of any of the boats there. And minimal manoeuvres.
I'm just noticing Peters and Sterrett equal on speed with Dunningbeck and Gunn, but the lead they took, they did through shorter distance. So very good angle playing on that. I was particularly impressed with that second beat, able to take a bunch of lifts and extend that way.
Okay, yeah, so just under 100 metres less distance sailed by Peters and Sterrett compared with Dunningbeck and Gunn, but it's Dunningbeck and Gunn who win the gold medal. That's the thing that matters, and that's a good feather in their cap as they are trying to prove their worth against Burling and Tuke as being an alternative pick for Tokyo 2020 next year. Do you think they stand any chance at all, Ben?
I think, the New Zealand selectors are surely going to slightly favor Burling and Tuke, but if a team wins and wins and wins and wins, they'll certainly make things very difficult. We didn't...
There's that race win for them now, the regatta win at Kiel week, so that's a good one to put up on the board today. Burling and Tuke back in fifth. They had their chances of getting in the medals today. But Chibatek and Kolodziejski, they wore the yellow jersey going into today. Still a very good result for them to get silver. And then the winners of the medal race, Peters and Sterrett, that was good enough to get them up into bronze medal position.
disappointing finish to the regatta for Phillips and Phillips. We saw them leading and tied for the lead in earlier stages of the racing, and now third heading into today. They drop all the way down to 7th based on their 9th in this race, so they'll be disappointed. They had an opportunity here to really score one for the Aussie team, who have had a bunch of good finishers this year, but no one team super consistent, and this is an opportunity missed for the Phillips brothers.
Yeah, that is true. And I think maybe also the changing conditions, they're very, very consistent in the strong winds. They're still world class in light winds, but they don't quite manage to string together the same level of consistency that we see from them in a breeze. We saw that in Weymouth at the European Championships just a month or so ago.
Yeah, big strong team. They definitely like the high wind conditions. They live in Melbourne, and obviously a place pretty famous for wind, but they're also super experienced, so sometimes it just doesn't work out, and they'll be looking for another chance. I'm not sure who's. I don't think they're getting the test event spot, are they? Anyways,
I don't know. I haven't heard who's going for Australia in that.
I do know they're going to Tokyo to do some training, and maybe they do have the test event spot. But there's a World Cup that everyone can enter after, so that's the next spot in tour. But like I said, a missed opportunity, not necessarily the most important one, but you want to get on a roll and keep doing well if you can.
So medal races don't always deliver great action. Sometimes the deal is done before the medal race has even begun. We just saw 3 fantastic medal races where nothing was assured, particularly that final 49er race where 9 out of 10 went in with a realistic chance of winning the gold medal. So we've seen some fantastic racing over the last week or so, Ben. It's been a pleasure working with you, and thanks to our man behind the scenes that puts the show together. That's Lars, and you managed to talk us into getting this English speaking coverage here this year. We hope we manage to come back next year for Kieler Woche. So thanks to the organisers of Kieler Woche, who put on a regatta like no other in the world, and on this occasion put on sunshine to deserve the title of California. So from California, from Ben Ramoka and myself, Andy Rice, it's goodbye, and we hope to see you again this time next year.